You're alone on a raft in the middle of the Atlantic. No engine, no sail worth trusting. The water around you covers 70% of the planet, and every liter of it is roughly 3.5% salt, enough to kill you if you drink it. Right now, you can walk to a tap and get clean water in about 4 seconds. You've probably never thought about that as a privilege. For most of human history, and for the man who once actually did this in 1952, it wasn't a given. It was the entire problem. So how did people who lived beside this ocean, sailed across it in wooden boats, and sometimes got stranded in the middle of it for weeks, how did they survive surrounded by more water than they could ever want, and unable to drink a drop of it? According to NOAA's Ocean Service, seawater contains about 35 grams of dissolved salt per liter, roughly 3 times saltier than human blood. Your kidneys can only concentrate urine to about 2% salt. That's a hard ceiling. Drink seawater, and your body needs more water than you just swallowed to flush the salt back out. This isn't a slow problem. It's a debt that compounds. Every glass of seawater you drink borrows water from your own cells to pay off, and the interest rate is brutal. Within days, it can trigger hypernatremia, swelling, seizures, organ failure. The ocean isn't neutral. It's actively hostile to the thing it surrounds. So what did ancient humans actually do about it? They didn't fight the ocean. They lived next to it, on their own terms. In 2007, archaeologist Curtis Moran and his team, excavating caves at Pinnacle Point near Mossel Bay, South Africa, found something remarkable. Shellfish remains, pigment, and stone tools dated to roughly 164,000 years ago, among the earliest evidence of humans systematically using the sea. They weren't drinking it, they were harvesting it, for protein, for shelter, for pigment, while staying anchored to freshwater streams and springs nearby. The ocean was a pantry, not a well. That distinction kept an entire species alive on a coastline that could otherwise have killed them. Everyone assumes desalination is a modern invention, something out of a steel plant, not a Stone Age. The truth is stranger. In the 4th century BC, Aristotle wrote that seawater, once evaporated, becomes sweet and never turns salty again on condensing. By around 200 AD, the philosopher Alexander of Aphrodisias was describing sailors who actually did it, boiling seawater in brass pots, hanging sponges above the steam, then wringing them out for fresh water. That's not folklore. That's functioning thermal distillation, built with fire and wool, roughly 1,800 years before the first patented desalination plant went up in Britain in 1869. So what happens when you don't have a pot, a fire, or a coastline? Just open ocean. In 1952, French doctor Alain Bombard tested that question on himself. He sailed alone from Las Palmas toward the Caribbean in a 14-foot inflatable boat, carrying no food and no fresh water on purpose. For 65 days, he drank small, deliberate amounts of seawater, pressed juice from raw fish, and ate plankton by the spoonful. He landed in Barbados on December 23, 1952, having crossed more than 2,700 miles. He'd also lost roughly 25 kilograms, and his legs and feet had swollen dangerously along the way. Bombard proved the body could survive it. Barely, and only under conditions he controlled with total precision. He wasn't reckless. He was calculating exactly how much poison a person could absorb without dying. Other doctors, like Hannes Lindemann, who repeated versions of the crossing soon after, argued Bombard's method was far riskier than he let on. Because control is exactly what most castaways never had. In 1884, the yacht Mignonette wrecked in the South Atlantic, leaving 4 crew members adrift with almost no food or water. Days into the ordeal, the ship's 17-year-old cabin boy, Richard Parker, drank seawater out of desperation. He fell seriously ill within days. His 3 crewmates, believing him close to death anyway, later killed and ate him to survive. A case so notorious it's still taught in law schools today as R.V. Dudley and Stevens. One man calculated his way across an ocean. One boy, with no knowledge and no discipline, didn't survive his own thirst long enough to be rescued. Same water, same salt, completely different outcome. That's the real answer buried under all of this. Ancient humans never learned some secret trick for drinking the sea. What they learned, through 164,000 years of staying close to freshwater coastlines, through Greek sailors boiling pots and wringing sponges, through one doctor nearly destroying his own body to prove a point, was almost the opposite skill: how to survive next to something you can never actually rely on. You're still floating on that same raft, in a way, every single time you turn on a tap without thinking about it. Surrounded by an ocean of water, exactly like every human who came before you, and precisely as vulnerable to it the moment you forget the rule. The real weapon was never learning to drink the ocean. It was learning never to need to. You're floating alone in the Atlantic, and every drop of water around you is trying to kill you. For most of human history, that wasn't a thought experiment. It was Tuesday. This video traces how humans actually survived next to and inside the one resource on Earth that's everywhere and almost nowhere drinkable at the same time. From Stone Age foragers to a doctor who deliberately shipwrecked himself to prove a point.